In world history, there are certain names that stand out, leaving an unforgettable impact. One such name is Benito Mussolini, born on a balmy summer day, specifically July 29, 1883, in a quaint Italian town. Mussolini's birth marked the beginning of a life that would be anything but ordinary. His father, Alessandro, was a blacksmith and a passionate socialist, while his mother, Rosa, was a devout Catholic. The Mussolini family lived in humble, and young Benito's upbringing was far from luxurious. His childhood was marked by skinny meals and a restless spirit, always yearning for something more. Little did the world know that this insecure boy would one day become a powerful leader, shaping the destiny of a nation and leaving a permanent mark on the world. Benito Mussolini, the eldest child of the family, grew up in a modest home. Mussolini's dad often talked about politics in bars and spent a lot of his money on his mistress. This meant that Mussolini and his siblings didn't have much to eat most of the time. As a restless child, Benito Mussolini was known for his disobedience, unruliness, and aggression. He was a bully at school and often moody at home. Because Mussolini was difficult to handle at the village school, his teachers had a hard time keeping him in line. As a result, he was sent to live with the strict Salesian order at Faenza. There he caused even more trouble, stabbing a fellow student with a penknife and attacking a Salesian who had tried to discipline him. He was expelled from Faenza and sent to the Carducci school at Forlimpopoli, where he continued to misbehave. He was expelled from this school as well, after assaulting yet another student with his penknife. Despite his troubles, he passed his final examinations without difficulty. He obtained a teaching diploma and briefly worked as a schoolmaster, but soon realized that he was unsuited for such work. At the age of 19, he left Italy for Switzerland only with a nickel medallion of Karl Marx in his empty pockets. For the next few months, he lived a transient life, jumping from job to job. Mussolini had a complex and challenging early life. While he gained a reputation for his magnetic personality and powerful speaking abilities, he also faced numerous struggles and encounters with the law. Mussolini stood out from his friends because he read a lot and was interested in many different subjects. However, he hadn't yet figured out his own clear political philosophy. Even though he didn't have a clear political ideology, people could see Mussolini's impressive speaking skills and potential for leading change. As he returned to Italy in 1904, his name was beginning to attract attention even in the Roman newspapers. After returning to Italy, Mussolini's life took a different turn. He became a schoolmaster in the Venetian Alps, but he soon grew tired of this life and returned to trade union work, journalism, and extreme politics. However, his involvement in these activities led to his arrest and imprisonment once again. This pattern of radical political engagement and subsequent imprisonment would come to characterize Mussolini's early years, setting the stage for his later rise to power as the leader of the fascist movement in Italy. During a period of freedom in 1909, Mussolini fell in love with 16-year-old Rachele Guidi, the younger of the two daughters of his father's widowed mistress. She went to live with him in a damp, cramped apartment in Forli and later married him. Soon after the marriage, Mussolini was imprisoned for the 5th time. By then, he had become recognized as one of the most gifted and dangerous of Italy's younger socialists. After writing in a wide variety of socialist papers, he founded a newspaper of his own called The Class Struggle. His paper was so successful that in 1912 he became the editor of the official socialist newspaper Avanti. Under his leadership, its circulation doubled in no time. As its anti-militarist, anti-nationalist and anti-imperialist editor, he thunderously opposed Italy's intervention in World War I. In 1914, Mussolini changed his mind about getting involved in wars. He was influenced by Karl Marx, who thought that wars could lead to big changes in society, and Mussolini thought that if France lost a war, it would be bad for freedom in Europe. So he started saying that Italy should join the war. Because of this, he quit Avanti and got kicked out of the Socialist Party. With money from France and Italian businesses, he became the boss of Popolo newspaper. There, he made it clear that he believed in a new way of thinking, which later became known as fascism. Mussolini's support for Italy joining World War I and what he did afterward helped him become the leader of the fascist movement in Italy. During World War I, Benito Mussolini served as a sharpshooter and was wounded in action. His experiences in the war led to a significant shift in his political beliefs. Mussolini came back home with a strong belief against socialism and a feeling that he was meant for something important. In 1918, he began advocating for the emergence of a dictator to confront the economic and political crisis gripping Italy. Just 3 months later, in a widely reported speech in Bologna, he hinted that he himself might prove to be such a man. This marked the beginning of the rise of fascism in Italy, as Mussolini laid the groundwork for the establishment of a new force in Italian politics, known as the fighting bands. These groups were bound together by ties as close as those that secured the fasces of the liberties, the symbols of ancient Roman authority. This marked the birth of fascism, with Mussolini at its helm. Benito Mussolini's rise to power was marked by his charismatic leadership and the use of exciting techniques. At rallies, surrounded by supporters wearing black shirts, Mussolini's physical presence and oratory style attracted more crowds. His speeches, characterized by dramatic expressions and vigorous gestures, often imposed his mood on the audience. Although Mussolini sometimes acted theatrically and displayed contradictory behaviors, his strong speaking skills and commanding presence left a lasting impact on the Italian people. This helped him gather significant support for the fascist movement. The rise of fascism in Italy was marked by the emergence of fascist squads, also known as black shirts, which carried out violent actions in the countryside, targeting socialists, burning down union and party offices, and terrorizing the local population. With the direct help of landowners, these squads began to attack local government institutions and prevent left-wing administrations from taking power. By late 1921, the fascists controlled large parts of Italy, and the left had all but collapsed. The government, dominated by middle-class liberals, did little to combat this lawlessness, and the fascist movement built a broad base of support around the powerful ideas of nationalism and anti-Bolshevism. This laid the groundwork for Benito Mussolini's planning to seize power at the national level. The gathering of 40,000 fascists in Naples on October 24, 1922, was a significant event that marked a key moment in Benito Mussolini's rise to power. During this gathering, Mussolini declared that either the government would be given to the fascists or they would seize it by marching on Rome. This declaration and the enthusiastic response from the assembled fascists demonstrated the growing strength and determination of the fascist movement, setting the stage for their ascent to power. This event ultimately led to the March on Rome, which ended up in Mussolini being appointed Prime Minister of Italy. Benito Mussolini became the youngest Prime Minister in Italian history on October 31, 1922. While he benefited from favorable political and economic conditions, his rapid rise to power was also a result of his unique qualities. His success was attributed to his personality, instinct, calculated decisions, opportunism, and exceptional skills as an agitator. Eager to show that he was not just the leader of fascism, but also the head of a unified Italy, Mussolini presented a list of ministers to the king, most of whom were not from his party. Despite this gesture, he made it clear that he intended to govern with authority. He acquired full dictatorial powers for a year and used this authority to pass a law that allowed the fascists to secure a majority in parliament. The elections in 1924, although ruined by fraud, solidified his grip on power. Many Italians, particularly the middle class, embraced Mussolini's rule, seeking stability and national pride. Fascism's bold approach, along with promises of economic improvement, appealed to people who were tired of turmoil and instability. Despite the restoration of order and ambitious public works projects, the price cost was way higher. Italy's democratic system crumbled in favor of a single-party state. Opposition parties, unions, and free press were banned, and opposition was silenced. A widespread network of spies monitored the populace, targeting not only socialists but also moderate liberals and Catholics. In a sudden turn, Mussolini's followers kidnapped and murdered socialist deputy Giacomo Matteotti in 1924, who was a vocal critic of fascism. Despite being rattled by the Matteotti crisis, Mussolini held on to his control over the country, even as restraint increased. Mussolini was celebrated as a brilliant and extraordinary leader by prominent figures globally. His accomplishments were viewed as nearly miraculous. He was credited with revitalizing and uniting a fractured and disheartened Italy, implementing social reforms and public projects while maintaining the backing of industrialists and landowners. Remarkably, he also managed to reconcile with the papacy. Despite the glowing praise and propaganda surrounding his rule, the actual situation was less optimistic. Italy still grappled with significant social divisions, and fundamental issues within the state and economy remained largely unaddressed, revealing a stark contrast between perception and reality during Mussolini's tenure. Mussolini could have been remembered as a hero if it weren't for his cruel xenophobia, arrogance, and misguided ambitions that drove him to pursue foreign conquest. His desire for empire drove him to set his sights on Ethiopia, which peaked in Italy's invasion in October 1935, after months of preparation and threats. The brutal campaign that followed saw the use of gas bombs on the Ethiopian people, drawing condemnation from Europe. Despite the initial outrage, the League of Nations sanctions failed to stop Mussolini's ambitions, as vital resources like oil were not included. On May 9, 1936, in front of a huge crowd in Rome, Mussolini proudly announced the establishment of Italy's empire, which marked a high point in public backing for his government. Italy's invasion of Ethiopia also marked a new alliance with a rising power. Germany's Adolf Hitler, driven by his own imperial ambitions in Austria, actively supported Mussolini's African campaign. Germany, under Hitler's influence, stood as the lone major Western European nation to back Mussolini amidst growing opposition. This set the stage for a ruthless partnership between Hitler and Mussolini, which would eventually contribute to their downfall. In 1938, following Germany's lead, Mussolini's government made anti-Semitic laws in Italy, targeting Jews across all aspects of society and laying the groundwork for the forced removal of a significant portion of Italy's Jewish population to German concentration camps during the war. Despite understanding the significance of peace for Italy's well-being and the risk of a prolonged conflict, Benito Mussolini struggled with conflicting concerns. While he hesitated to fully align with the Germans, he also feared losing out on potential advantages if Italy stayed out of World War II. His foreign secretary and son-in-law, Count Galeazzo Ciano, documented a lengthy and indecisive conversation at the Palazzo Venezia, where Mussolini initially leaned towards avoiding war, only to later feel compelled by honor to stand alongside Germany. Mussolini declared war on France and Britain on June 10, 1940, without consulting his government or the Grand Council of Fascism. This decision was influenced by Germany's successes in the war, particularly as France seemed on the edge of collapse. Mussolini's delayed entry into the war drew criticism, with the British press labeling him negatively. The declaration of war was made from the balcony of the Palazzo Venezia in Rome. Mussolini, standing before a gathered crowd, underscored the significance of breaking ties to the Mediterranean and emphasized Italy's commitment to opposing the Western democracies. In the early days of the war, Italy faced challenges, as Mussolini's hopes for a quick win didn't work out as he hoped. France surrendered before Italy could achieve much, leaving Mussolini to meet with Hitler, feeling somewhat powerless, as his input was just advisory. This showed a change in Mussolini's role within the Axis alliance, realizing he was the less important partner. The Germans kept their military plans secret and surprised their allies with actions like taking over Romania and later attacking the Soviet Union without telling Mussolini first. During this period, Italy's role in World War II became more noticeable due to those incidents, and Mussolini's role started to change. In a bold move to show his independence from Hitler, Mussolini attacked Greece through Albania in 1940 without asking the Germans first, as a response to Hitler's actions. However, it ended in a humiliating defeat, and Germany had to step in to help lessen the consequences. Italy also joined Germany in invading the Soviet Union in 1941, but their troops struggled in the harsh winter and had to retreat. Hitler had to intervene once more to aid Italy in North Africa. After Italy surrendered in North Africa in 1943, Germany started getting ready for a possible collapse of Italy. Mussolini's belief that the public supported him and that Italy was strong in war became clear when the Western Allies successfully invaded Sicily in July 1943, signaling the beginning of the end of his rule. Italian fascists and those who weren't fascists had been quietly working to remove Benito Mussolini from power for a while. On July 24th, an important meeting of the Fascist Grand Council happened, the first since the war started. In this meeting, most people voted to kick Mussolini out of his position. Even though Mussolini tried to act like it wasn't a big deal and didn't think his followers would turn against him, he went about his usual routine and went to his office the next morning like everything was normal. But then, later that afternoon, he was suddenly arrested by order of the king after meeting with him at the villa, showing a big change in Mussolini's political career. Mussolini was put in jail first on an island called Ponza, then on another island near Sardinia, and finally taken to a hotel high up in the mountains of Abruzzi called Gran Sasso. It was thought that rescuing him from there was impossible, but a group of German soldiers, led by a man named Otto Corenzi, somehow managed to rescue him. Using gliders, the soldiers landed behind the hotel where Mussolini was held captive. After a daring rescue attempt, they flew him to Munich. However, during the escape, their glider crashed on September 12, 1943. To stop Germany from completely controlling Italy, Mussolini agreed with Hitler to set up a new fascist government in northern Italy. This new government was called the Republic of Salo. Even though Mussolini tried to keep some control, he admitted to visitors that it was just a puppet government controlled by Germany. While he stayed in Salo, thinking about his place in history, Mussolini knew his regime was about to collapse. The Italian fascists kept working with the Germans, sending people away, hurting suspected rebels and helping in the war against the Allies. When the German defenses in Italy started to fall apart and the Allies were moving quickly towards the north, the leaders of the Italian communist supporters decided to kill Mussolini, even though some people advised him to run away, including his older surviving son. Mussolini didn't want to leave Italy. Instead, he tried to go to the Valtellina region, maybe planning to fight in the mountains. But very few men wanted to go with him. He tried to escape by pretending to be a German soldier in a group heading to Austria. But he was recognized and caught with his girlfriend Claretta, who stayed with him till the end. On April 28, 1945, they were both shot by a group of soldiers. Their bodies were hung upside down in a public square in Milan. People were very happy and relieved when they heard Mussolini was dead, and they celebrated because they thought the war was finally over. After Mussolini died, most Italians weren't sad about it. He had been in charge for a long time and led Italy into a terrible war that the country wasn't ready for and didn't want to be in. When Mussolini was gone, Italy went back to being a democracy after being dictated by him for 20 years. Even though there was a new political party that followed Mussolini's ideas, they only got 2% of the votes in the 1948 elections. This showed that most Italians didn't want to keep following Mussolini's ways and were ready for a new way of running the country. As the curtain falls on the life of Benito Mussolini, his legacy remains a subject of controversy and debate. Mussolini started as a socialist, but he changed into a dictator who led Italy into a terrific war. His story is about wanting power, gaining it, and then losing it with the sacrifice of his life. Though he once held the reins of authority with an iron grip, his final moments serve as a harsh reminder of the sudden nature of political dominance. Even in death, Mussolini's legacy is a mix of successes and failures, a reminder of the risks of uncontrolled authoritarianism and the fight for freedom and democracy. As history's judgment unfolds, the impact of Mussolini's intense era still echoes, reminding us of the crucial need to remain watchful and committed to the values of fairness and respect for human rights.